Welcome back to China Economy and Society. Today I want to discuss a little bit more about China's efforts in eradicating poverty. Over the last few days there's been a big media push in China. I was at a couple of talk shows. China is very proud to have reached a lot in poverty reduction and to have only 45 million people living below the poverty line, which is $1 per day, or equivalent to about $360 per year. And that represents about 3% of the population of China. Only 3% is living currently under extreme poverty condition. What is the important thing? The important thing is that China's goal is that by 2020, so in the next 3 years, this number will be zero. Total eradication of poverty. And so from 1978 to today, more than 850 million people will have been eradicated from the poverty. How does China do this? China does it because it has a plan. Like it does in everything, it's a plan, targeted poverty plan in 6 points. The first point is China now has a record of who these 45 million people are. Where do they live? And it has identified about 12 areas, 12 counties around China where these 45 million people live. It includes the area of Tibet, some southwestern counties in southwestern provinces, and something in the north and the northeast of China. So Chinese plan is articulated into 6 points. So who are those people and where they live? It's like keeping a record. Every poor people has a card. We know who they are, where they live, how much money they make. So we know who they are. Second point is the plan targets who are the government official responsible for those areas, whether it's a county, village chief or any political cadre. We know the names of the people that are responsible for these 45 million poor people. Number 3, China has decided, depending on where these people live and what do they do, for each of them will plan a program of poverty alleviation. That can be training, it could be microcredit. Indeed, microfinance has done a lot. It could be a food program, could be a housing program, so prime necessities. Number 4, you know the story, infrastructure. After having identified where these people live, China will decide what roads to build, sanitation system, water irrigation, and even to make this poverty eradication sustainable, try to develop agribusiness, tourism in rural areas. Number 5, very important, is the creation of social groups. So those people that perhaps are not in dire needs of the help from the government, they make their own time available, their own resources available to help the community. And that creates a big sense of community. So it's not just the individual that is eradicated from the poverty, but the success becomes the success of the wider area, of the village, of the county. And then number 6, the most important, is what I call it, performance review. Every government official at the end of the year advances in his political career according to whether he has or not met these poverty reduction targets. So what do we have here? We have a very well thought plan that goes from top down with the government, central government directives to eradicate poverty, bring this number to 0 in 3 years' time, and at the same time cascading down in order to make sure that the implementation is done correctly. The reward system rewards those that succeed. And so there is a complete alignment of interest, and this is the reason why China succeeds in doing things. As a maybe a side note, while China number of people living below the poverty line is 3% in our country, in Italy, we have 5 million people living below the poverty line. which is about 8% of the population. Now, of course, we cannot immediately compare 3% with the Italian 8% because the definition of poverty in China is about $360 per year. In Italy is about 600 euros per month for single households, or about 1,000 euro per month for households composed by 3 people, which would be equivalent to about 300 euro per person per month of income. So we're looking at almost 10 times higher. But taking into account the cost of living, we have a problem in Italy. Of course, the 5 million people do not live in the situation of extreme poverty like the 45 million people in China, but China is still very proud of this 3% result, and we perhaps once again in Italy and in other Western countries, we should look at China and implement a program that has a similar characteristic to this. And the thing that I do emphasize is things get done only when there is total alignment of interest, when the central government policy is implemented by people at the bottom that wake up in the morning and before opening their eyes, they think, how do I get my number down to 0? Without that, we talk and we don't do anything. Thank you very much and goodbye.